going to make a prompt start again at past, which is what I like to do with these things, just because I'm recording it. So anybody who jumps in a bit later can catch the beginning a bit later on the playback, and also anybody who wants to just play back at the leisure anyway, it's being recorded and will get sent out and shared on social media. So again, so pretty much on the past, we'll get going, and we'll get straight into this one. I'm expecting it to be a bit on the longer side today. Normally I try to keep my webinars to half an hour just to make them quite concise. This one might go a bit longer than that one just because of the content that we're going into. So I think I'll make that bang on 12:30 now. So I'll get started, get cracking. And so first of all, again, just thank you everybody for coming along today and participating. Anybody who's watching later, again, thank you again for your support. It's really appreciated. Just a bit of an agenda, just a quick run through what we're going to try to do today. And again, the agenda, the first parts of this, so about 5 minutes for an intro, 5 minutes on what a good plan might look like, just in case you don't like the format of mine. But on the same time with that, why people might then get stuck, so what things people end up spinning their wheels on, and then it'll be sort of 20 minutes or so walking through a template. At the end of this, there's also a Q&A. Again, I've been supported. Thank you again to Creations. Jordan's on supporting things, looking at the chat and any Q&As that come through. So again, if you've got any questions as we go through this, feel free to drop them in there, or again, follow up afterwards. But I had any pre-submitted this time as well. So anything you've got, then please feel free to send it across to Jordan. So the majority of this session will be to talk through the template that I've got for you. And again, the way that that's put together, there's a reason for it. So I'll come to that in a bit. That should be the majority of what we're going to go through. So into the intro then. So again, a little bit about me. Sometimes I'll skip over this section because some people just see this sort of thing happening each time. But because we're talking about a bit more complicated subject, I wanted to give a bit more context about me and where I came from. So originally I used to work in London. I was there for 10 years. In investment banks, and then sort of moving into the IT side of things. But in every role, I got involved in the business strategy, and I really enjoyed that concept of what the strategy might look like for a business, how things hang together, how different projects hang together, how different teams hang together, and it all started to sort of play something into the hands of what I really enjoy. And it was quite good when you find that there are certain teams that work and function in a certain way, and I wanted to encapsulate that and think, well, hang on, why does that team work really, really well and that team doesn't? It's all the same thing. So it's almost trying to figure out and join the dots between all of those things about what makes a business work and be really, really effective. Then just carried that through. Moved away from London up to the East Midlands and went to a utilities company and was there for 9 years. I was at E.ON, I was there for 9 years. And again, wanted to test myself on something a bit smaller. Went to a smaller business, tried to implement things there, started working closely with the leadership team there and started thinking, hang on a minute, I can really affect things. And that's where the sort of the inertia came from to say, right, I'm going to go there and do this myself because I can share something for you guys as well. So I've really enjoyed that journey, but it was time to then bring it to everybody and see what I can do to help different businesses. The concept of what I like to do, and again, this is everything I've tried to do in all of my old roles, was to keep it simple. So if I'm trying to explain something, I want to make it so it's understandable. And if it isn't understandable, I haven't done my job very well. And that's the sort of concept to play with this as well. So any of this context here, any of the messaging that I get across here, if it isn't simple, you don't understand it, then please get in touch and ask me, because I want to make things simpler and I want to refine things as we go along. So again, I try to keep it simple. It doesn't always work, but that's the intention. So if anything's misunderstood, then please let me know. And I'll give you an example of how I've made this simpler as we go through this as well. And the other thing is that I like to start at the end in mind. And when we start walking through the plan, you'll see why. I like to look as far away as possible to then come back. And the reason for that is you can then start to measure the successes and you realize that actually you are getting where you wanted to. So if you start at that end point, you can then start working back and making sure that you're on target. If you don't have that end point, then how do you know if you're actually going in the right direction? And then on to that one. So then the other part of this, so why would you then need a business plan? So that's a bit about me, but then why do you need a plan in the first place? Why do you need to have one? And it's interesting, actually. I've had a couple of conversations, but I'll come on to them in a second. But ultimately, no one needs a plan if you're going to do the cardinal sin here. The number one thing you must not do is to put it in the drawer. You can't just put the business plan in the drawer and then forget about it and one and done. There is a slight part to that sometimes if you commit something to the universe, you might get there anyway. But that's the back of your mind. Those things might happen. You might start doing the things that you said you wanted to. But actually having something that you've created and then working towards it, that's a really, really good thing. But I sort of smiled as I went into this one. Again, it reminds me of a couple of conversations I've had over the last couple of weeks, because I was talking to a couple of business owners in different businesses that are sort of in their 50s. And I talked to them about the 10-year side of things. Where do you want to be in 10 years? And they're retired. I don't need a plan. I'm going to be retiring in 10 years, or even sooner than that. I want to be retired sooner than that. And that's the whole part of this is Is there some personal aspects to this thing? But ultimately, we're creating a business plan. So ultimately, you might want to create a plan that in 10 years, your business will be in a certain position. You might not be in there. But the old idea is that it's the business that needs to create that thing to give you the lifestyle that you can afford to leave and walk away and retire. So then what might a good plan look like? And again, I've got a map on here to try and give you that visualization of, it's like a sat nav almost. It's a kind of a map and it's got your destination on it. It steers you towards the right thing. But again, like really good sat navs nowadays, if you've got a traffic problem, there's an issue that's going to stop you from getting to a certain destination, it might try to reroute you. It might try to remap you. If you take a wrong turning, it might then reconfigure and redirect you and get you to the right place as quick as it can. So it's a bit like your sat nav. It doesn't mean that this is the only way you're going to take. This is not the only journey that you're going to have. It's not going to be fixed in place. It just needs to have that flexibility to steer you in the right kind of direction without making you only go in one direction, if that makes sense. So on top of that, there's steering you part of it. The next part of this is it is yours. And it needs to be the whole point of what we try to do when we try to build one of these things is that the business plan that you create needs to be your business plan. It can't be a copy and paste from somewhere else. It needs to be something that you buy into. And again, if there's a leadership team and there's 3 or 4 people that work through this, that's when it starts to take a bit more time. To create a business plan with a client, if it's just one client that's got the overall say of where the business is going to go, it still takes a day to create that full plan because there's a lot of conversation to happen. So you can imagine then you start to get 3, 4, 5 people from a leadership team together. It needs to be all of theirs. They all need to share what this map looks like. So you can't just do that in a day. Sometimes those will take 2 days to get through because you need to make sure that everyone buys into it and everyone understands what the whole plan looks like. Now, the last part to this section is the T-shaped thing. And again, it's another concept I've been playing around with for a little while. And these T-shapes used to fit in when it came to strategy. And there is this, if you can visualize again the shape of the letter T, a capital T, the idea is that you will sometimes have the strategic side of things that looks right across the top level. And that's it. It's the top part of that T. And the verticals that come down from that will sometimes be delivered in different ways. So a really good business plan will do just that. It's the high level, the top part of your T. And then in each of the areas that we come to talk to, and again, I'll explain those when we come onto the plan in a moment, but the verticals that come down from that one, they're the bits that will be delivered in different ways. So I'll come onto that one, but just bear that in mind, it's a T shape. So why might people get stuck? And again, I like the visual on this one. This is, again, for those of you who aren't aware, this is my most popular webinar that I do. And I ran this one a little while ago in the winter time, and the snow seemed to be quite apt at that time. How did we know the picture was still apt for an April day? We've still got the snow. Anyway, we're so British, we love the weather. Why do people get stuck then? Why do people spin their wheels and what happens? So I mentioned the draw. So that's the one thing that can happen there is that people might get to this situation where they fully see the value in creating a business plan. They've created one. They've spent a lot of time doing it. It's right, this is where I want to be. This is how I'm going to get there. This is what's going to happen. And then they just stick it in a drawer and leave it and say, right, you know what, I'm good now. I know what I'm doing. And off we go. That works for a while. 6 months, you find that things start to sort of fall away again. But then also things like the wheels might fall off. And also, as we've seen, the last 12 months, the pandemic that's kicked in, it's a very, very easy opportunity for someone to say, right, you know what, it's just not going to happen anymore. The wheels have fallen off. I'm out. Yeah, okay, I get that. Things do change, and things like the pandemic can be absolutely drastic. But one of my most successful clients works in the hospitality industry. Hospitality closed, but yet they've still managed to keep the wheels turning and doing things to make sure that when things start to unlock again, they're ready, they're fully flying, and obviously change direction with a couple of other bits too. Then the other reason that people might get stuck here is it comes down to personal ability. And again, a lot of conversations I'm having at the moment with people are, when you go on as a solopreneur, you start out on your own, this is something that happens to a lot of people is that, yes, you've got the technical ability. You're a master technician, you know what you're doing. You know what the thing is that you do, but you don't know how to run a business. You've never run a business before because you've worked for a business. You've started out working for a corporate world. You decided to make a jump into self-employment, but you've never run a business before. So you might stop because your personal ability gets to a point where you say, you know what, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do this. But again, that's okay. Ask for some help. And the other part of it is that you might be working in a business where they've got this planning in place, and you might find that you've hit the top of your threshold. And again, that is normal. Some people do get to that point where they hit the top of the threshold and they can't work anymore. But that's okay, just move sideways. It doesn't need to mean that you have to stop completely and shut things right down. And the last one on this one, why do people get stuck? And it is that commitment side of things. And it's really difficult, certainly in these circumstances, that some people find that commitment just wanes. And I mentioned this in a video I did on YouTube a little while ago. People's energy levels are just drained and zapped at the moment. And that means that the commitment to actually getting those things done, it can be really, really difficult to do. To unlock that commitment that you might need, that's where people might struggle and say, you know what, it's just too much for me. And it can be. But the idea is then you just reset, rebalance, say, you know what, let's just do a little bit less this quarter and do a little bit more the following quarter, because energy levels will come back, mojo will come back. So don't just completely let go and say, that's it, I'm done. Just make sure you pare back a little bit and then get ready to go again the next time round. So we should now be able to go into, I wanted to mention the frameworks piece. I can't remember my own slides. So the framework side of things. So again, this is not trying to say now that my framework is the only framework and what you do is, that's it, it's the only thing that's going to work for you. But there's a few examples on here of people that I've met and things that I've come across. So I can go on at length about the Entrepreneurial Operating System, or EOS. I used to work with that. I used to be subscribed or a member of that aspect and wanted to use that in my own business, but I just found it was a bit too much for what I was trying to do. So EOS is there. You can use that as a system. There are great supports out there. There are great people that work with that system as well. You've got action coaches. And again, I'm sure if you've been out and done some networking, you'll have met an action coach or two. So those frameworks exist too. They've got their own ways of doing things. But then you come across the likes of me, an independent. I like to do things in my own way. I've used some of the frameworks that I've seen before and I've polished them up and dusted them down to make them mine. So you get people like me that do things in an independent manner. Again, I'm not going to tell you which is the best for you, but I'll just explain to you that there are others. There are frameworks that you might resonate with and there are things that you might do. But in any framework that you have, any framework that you do want to implement for your business, just be sure that you can follow the following sections in terms of the things that you need to have in your business plan. So we'll go into it. So this one is the walk chart. I'm just going to take a little sip of water. But you can see I call this the walk chart, and this is mine. It's developed from, I've seen pages before. You have pages and pages, reams and reams that create a business plan and your documentation. But the idea is I wanted to keep this as simple as possible. I've seen 4-page business plans, 2-page business plans. I wanted something that you can get onto one page. And again, tried and tested, and I've put this into here. And I'm able to get a business plan onto this one page. And it prints out quite nicely. And also I use Trello for this sort of thing too. And Trello is the sort of thing you can then manage this on a daily basis or a weekly basis, rather than needing to keep referring back to this one on a regular basis. It's called the walk chart because, again, simplification. I wanted it to be, it was way more complicated than this. As my partner actually said, actually, it just looks like, where are we going? And when I had that analogy then of the sat nav, that's the kind of thing, where are we going? This should be your map. It should be telling you what you're doing. And again, you can see it looks quite simple. And the idea is here that it's the things that you put into this that make it quite complicated. So as we go through this, I'm going to basically break this section by section just to explain to you what needs to be in each of these boxes and the reason why you want to do that. And the first one at the top there you'll see is the values side of things. So from the value side, this is really, it works in 2 ways. The values are the values of your business. So again, it could be your personal values, which if you're a solopreneur, that's likely to be your values, and your business values can be very closely aligned. But if not, it'll be your business values and making sure that your people in your business can link to those values and that they see them. You've seen core values before. And again, I'm sure you've been into different businesses where these things are written up on the wall. But having them written on the wall, actually then following them and making sure that they're not just pieces of words or words that are on the screen, it needs to be something that actually makes sense, that you can start to gauge people by, making sure that they're actually following the values that you've set out for your business. The reason that you have that, the reason you have your values is because you want to make sure that the staff that work for your business can follow those values. But on the same side of things, if you publicize those to out to the wider world, people will look at that and say, actually, I wouldn't mind being a client of them. I wouldn't mind working with that business because their values are similar to mine. So it works on 2 ways. The next piece down here is then what we do. And the idea is here that you just want to try and keep it to the simplest part. And remember, this whole T-shaped piece again, the highest level is just a very simple sentence that states what it is that you do and trying to make it as succinct and as small as you can to try and explain it simply. It comes to the whole networking. What is it that you try to do for people? If you can explain that in a few seconds to capture someone's attention and they don't just sort of walk away or need to ask another 5 questions, that's what you're trying to get to. The next thing again is what is it that you do and why are you the best at it? Why are you the best at what you do in your field? And again, from my side of things, this simplification. That's the sort of thing we're trying to do. If you think about what you might do here as well, if you're trying to do a pitch to somebody, if you're standing there and you've got 30 seconds to pitch and say what it is that you do and why you're the best at it, if you can get really good at making that really simple, then that's going to work better for you in the longer term. You then put the next section. Actually, I'll skip a section there and come back to that one. It deserves its own slide. But then you've got the who for. And you've heard about this, I'm sure, before from a marketing perspective. Who is this for? Where are they? What will you give them, and what's your guarantee? And if you can provide a guarantee, that's a really strong message to give. So the who are they? What type of profile? What do they look like? How do they act? How do they operate? Where do they play? That sort of thing. And then where are they? Do you have to regionalize issues for your business? Do you only want to work within a 50-mile radius of where you're based? Are you just in the UK even, or are you European, or are you global? That kind of thing. And the idea is here you're trying to create some sort of crosshairs on a target. Think about the bullseye in the middle of an archery target. How do you get right in the middle and say, right, they're our best. They're the ones that are the easiest to service, that give us the most money. They're the ones you're trying to target. Not to say you wouldn't work with people on the outer parts of your bullseye, but then you want to make sure that the marketing that you're doing is specific to those ideal clients for you. And then again, a sentence, what will we give them? So again, you can try and think about the simplistic part of that. What are you going to give them? How are you going to actually give them the service that they want? And then onto the guarantee. It's the guarantee of if things don't go quite as planned, what can you guarantee them to try and get that little hook to say, right, you know what, this is a no-brainer for me. I'm going to take a punt on this company. So that's the idea behind that section. We said about T-shape earlier on. So this is almost like your marketing plan. But then you can go down again. You don't have to have just sentences that describe things. You might then create glossy diagrams or pictures or brochures. Your website needs to have this content on it as well, but not just this content. It should contain more than that as well. So what did I say there about 10 years time? So this is again what I said before at the beginning of this webinar, is start with the end in mind. And obviously the end shouldn't be 10 years time. I'd like to think that the majority of us will still be around in 10 years and beyond. But in 10 years time, it gives you that sort of point in the sand to say, right, over here in 10 years time, where is this business going to be? What's it going to look like? How's it going to feel, or not how's it going to feel? What's this actual thing going to be? At the moment, if you're a team of 1 or 3 people, is the intention that you're going to have multiple branches, multiple locations across the East Midlands. So then the idea is here that you put something out here that's actually, I get this, I understand what this means. And for me, mine is that I want to be recognised in the East Midlands as one of the most supportive and encouraging coaches that there is, because that's it. I don't want to be greater than that side of things. I want people to know what I am, and that people to know what I do. And the idea of here, the webinar, is to spread some of that around, is to try and give people some support and encouragement rather than just trying to sell to people all the time. And again, it might be that you have a business where there's 50 people in it, you want to be 200 people. So there's lots of different reasons in here. And it comes back to, there's analogies that go right back to sort of 50s, 60s, 70s. And one of the greatest ones here was the NASA one, where someone was seen sweeping the floor and was just asked, what is it that you're doing? And he just said, I'm putting a man on the moon. Because that's the concept. Nike have them and NASA have them, but they have this very bold statement that says, we want to put a man on the moon, and everyone buys into it. And I did mention Nike there. I just remembered as I was talking through it, slipped out at the same time. But the Nike one is a great one. You look at their mission statement, they call theirs, and that's a great thing to do. And you can go and find more information about mission statements on other videos I've done too. So once you've done that piece, that first piece is some of the hard legwork. It can take a long time to get through that bit, because it's thinking about the things that you don't generally tend to think about too much and apply. Once you've done that piece, you come back, it starts to become a little bit easier, because you've said, so if you're still that far away, the next section here is when you come back and start thinking about 3 years from now. So why would you do that again? So why would you start thinking about 3 years time? And the idea is here that 3 years is something a bit closer. We already know we're in 2021 now, and we can see that 2024 isn't too far away. So 24 is not a very difficult thing to see and start to visualize. Well, actually, you know what, I know what I'm going to be. And again, from a personal perspective, there could be personal things that come into play here. It could be that that's the time you wanted to retire. It could be that at the moment you're not married, but you want to be. It could be that you've not got kids, but you will have kids in 3 years' time. So they're easy ones to start answering. And for people, again, that struggle with this thing around 10 years and 3 years, and I don't really know, just think again, the things that you can answer. How old are you going to be? You know how old you're going to be in 3 years and 10 years' time. And again, like I said there, where are you going, like the family side of things. Will you be married? Will you have kids? Where will you be living? Do you still live in the same house in 3 years' time? So again, those things should be separated out from a business plan, but certainly when you start asking those questions about where you are from a personal perspective, it starts to bring things into context around the business side of things. You can then start putting more specifics on there. So again, we've put there the date. It's very clear that you actually write that down and you start to commit to a certain date in the future. But then you also start putting things in like measurables. So profit and turnover, again, they're the two things that tend to be the most commonly used numbers to measure things from a business perspective. But it could be also that currently you've got 10 staff and you want to move that to 20 in 3 years' time. So there could be other metrics. And the idea is here that I've left those two on the chart just so that you know that this is the point where you start to put specific measurables down. And again, each business is different. Some people might not be that bothered about, not bothered, but they might not be concerned about the financial side of things, because there could be a charity, they could be doing something else, it could be a cause that you've created this business for. So it could be something else that you measure by. But certainly here, at this point, this is where you start to think about how you're going to measure. The next one then, so we come down to, so we've gone from 3 years' time, we come back down to the next year's plan. So in a year's time, where are you going to be? And you can see now, you start to draw that line between, so 10 years away, and then 3 years away, and then a year away. So again, you know, a year's time, we're going to be into April 2022. And you know that that's going to be the situation, and you can't change that. So again, I've said about your personal circumstances, you might know some of those things, but from your business perspective, so even if you're not too sure, if you were to start to put things down and put a punt out and say, right, I think I want to be here. So you might not know where you want to be. You might have started your business in the last 6 months. If you started a business in the last 6 months, you might not know how your next year is going to be. But the idea is still here that you put something down, a marker that you aim towards. And the idea is, again, that you start to aim towards something is better than trying to aim, or not aim, is aiming for something and not actually getting there. So the idea is you come back and say, right, next year I want to be in this situation. I want my business to have turned over this much money, and I want this much profit to have come from it. There could be other things, like I've said again, it could be that actually you're concerned about staffing levels. There could be a few other different things that you might want to be bothered about. It could be the number of people that are attending your webinar. It could be the amount of people that are actually signing up to your emailing list. It could be the amount of hits you're getting into your website, how much social media interaction you're getting. All of those different things should be there to give you an indication about what it is that you're going to need to change and increase to get your business where it needs to be. And again, you might have 10 years worth of history behind you, and it could be that you've slowly gone up over the years, but next year you want to be the time when the hockey stick starts to come in. You want to see that bigger sustained growth. Things might have gone okay, but next year is the year you really want to go and do these things that you didn't get to the next time round. So again, it's 12 months away. You start to put things down there, and you start to put some really strong goals and achievements that you want to try and break, that you want to get through. Once you've done that, once you've got down to the next year's plan, you might also then start to come down, or you will start to come down to your next quarter. And the idea then that you come back down, again, you're drawing the line down from 10 years, 3 years, 1 year, and then the quarter. The idea is that you put that quarter together to make sure that you can start breaking things down into bite-sized chunks. And the idea is, again, a year away is very, very easy to get to the end of the year and realize that the things you wanted to do in the previous 12 months are still the same things that you wanted to get done in the next 12 months. That was one of the clients I had previously. I worked with them on a workshop. We did this on a one-day perspective, had a couple of conversations afterwards, and then it kind of went away after that. But then we got it together almost 12 months to the day from the first workshop. And a lot of the things that they'd said that they wanted to achieve in the last 12 months, they hadn't achieved still. They were still trying to get to the next piece to say, you know what, we still didn't finish that. We still didn't get to the piece that we wanted to make sure that we're able to move on to the next bit. And that's sometimes because you get that velocity going on to start off with, you get that initial hunger, that initial drive, and then things sort of fall away a little bit. And then you pick it back up again and you nearly achieve something, which means that by the end of the year, you still haven't done it. And I'm quite critical when it comes to talking to my clients. It's either done or it's not done. You can't have a nearly done. It's one of those things where if you get to the end of a quarter and you get to the situation, or you get to the end of a year and it hasn't been done, then it's not done. You can't sort of fob that off and say, actually, I did most of it. We either did it, we didn't do it. And again, similar to the quarterlies, the idea is you start getting into that situation. You've got 4 quarters a year, obviously. So if you don't do things quite right the first time round, in the next quarter, what you're doing there is you're understanding. You're going to iterate, you're going to learn. Why do we have a quarter? And again, it's that sort of thing in seasonal changes, which at the moment it's very confusing about what's happening outside, because we've sort of moved into spring, and generally tending that when the seasons change, people's attitudes change, the clocks change, the lights stays out later in the nighttime, and it starts to get warmer. Then in the winter it starts to get colder, and people sort of change. So because we change personally, a quarter seems to be a good velocity to work to. And similarly with a quarter, if you then work through a quarter and then you realize that you get halfway through it and you haven't done the things you wanted to achieve, it's easy to then sort of pick things back up again, to hit things and make sure you've achieved it. And again, that will happen. So you start off, you get a big buzz at the beginning of the quarter, and you're like, yeah, okay, let's get these things done that we promised we were going to get done. And then you sort of get to the middle of it and you realise that actually maybe I didn't actually finish that and I should have got a bit more effort into it. Then you start picking back up again. And it's a short enough cycle that you can kick back in and get finished for that quarter. Again, for each of those quarters, you put a date against it, a very fixed date that says, we're definitely going to have achieved this by this date. The profit and the turnover are in there again, but again, that's just the examples. There are other metrics that you might want to have in there. It could be that there are certain, you don't post on social media enough. You could say, right, I want to put X number of posts out on social media. I want to have X number of interactions on social media. There could be other things that you want to achieve that you can measure and put very specifics against. But then beyond this, you make sure that the quarter is then filled up with enough stuff that you can carry on doing your day job. These things shouldn't stop you from doing your day job, but these targets that you set down for each quarter help you get towards the next part of your business journey. You're going from your quarter to the year, you're going from year to year 3, that sort of thing. So making sure you've got things in there that will actually help that to achieve. So we then said the next part of this chart, this is the last part of the actual diagram itself. And again, I should have mentioned, I think everybody should have had a copy sent out by email when you got the registration details to log in to the Zoom conversation, to the Zoom call. And you should have seen as well that there was a PDF that comes with this. And you might look and see on the PDF that this has changed. So again, I said about iteration and simplification, trying to make things better as we go along. I used to call this an issues list. And the idea was that you put things on here and you work through your issues. But it's pointed out to me, actually, if they're things that are just around that aren't causing me a problem, they're not actually issues, are they? So you know what, that's not it at all, is it? It's not an issue then. This is just things to look at. So again, from a simple perspective, this list here should contain things that you need to get onto, things you need to look at, things that are impacting your business at some point, or maybe likely to impact your business down the line. And the idea is here again is that sometimes what people do is that they'll start working through their plan, they'll start working through the quarter and say, right, these are the things I've said I'm going to get done. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, the little shiny things comes in, an email comes in with a course or a webinar that you wanted to attend that isn't relating to your quarterly targets, but you really want to do it. It could be that something else has kicked in and think, actually, you know what, I really fancy doing that thing over there today. And you start realizing that I'm starting to build my own website and I didn't mean to do that, but I'm doing it anyway and I quite enjoyed it. So I'm going to get in and start doing that stuff. Well, that isn't really going to help you, because if you start taking your eye off the ball and you start looking at your shiny things, it means that your quarterly targets don't get done. Now, if the things that are on your things to look at list are really, really important and you should be looking at them, then your mistake was that you should have put them into your quarterly plan in the first place. But what the point here is nothing that's in this list should be something that you that can't wait for 3 months. When you set your plan out in the first place, if it wasn't that pertinent, it wasn't in your mind as being something that was really, really important, then realistically, it shouldn't be coming into the plan and derailing things when you've only just started it. It should be able to wait for 3 months. And again, that's the longest term. Even if you find out the day you do your plan, the following day this shiny thing comes in, the longest it's going to have to wait is 3 months. If you get halfway through your quarter, you're looking at 6 weeks. So it shouldn't be that these things derail you too much. But the point is that you should be able to take stock and say, right, I'm aware of these things. I can put them in this list. And I can put them down here to make sure that I don't forget them. And that's what this is trying to do, is to make sure that you've taken it out of your mind, that it's not going to distract you, but you've put it somewhere else to know that you're going to pick it up. So then the next time you look at your plan, the next time you look at what you're going to do for the next quarter, these things are all here. And it might even be that by the time you get to look at these things in 3 months' time, you realise that, hang on a minute, I'll put it on there, it's not important anymore. But that's fine as well, because you were aware of it at the time. You might have done something else about it. Something else might have kicked off. We might have gone back into another lockdown even. You never know what might happen, but these things can derail and change what you're doing. So this is the place to put them so that you don't forget them. So then a summarization of this. So I've gone through it a lot quicker than I thought, actually, but the idea is here, there's a summarization where you can create the plan, which is what I've done. I walked you through how to do that one again. Feel free to play that back and use it for creating your own plan. And what can help there is when you actually do have that plan in place, having somebody else to help you with that plan, help you to sort of run ideas by. And again, I'm not just necessarily doing this from a sales perspective. That's obviously what I do. I help people to put the right things into that plan. But if you don't do it with me and you want to do it with somebody else, then again, it's really good. More people talking about this is a better place to be, because they can play things back to you and make sure that what you're saying actually makes a bit of sense and it's the right thing to be doing at the right time. And it just sounds logical. So certainly bringing more people in to help you with that plan is a really good idea. And then the next one on this one is the accountability side of things. So again, I mentioned there about having a quarterly set of targets to work to. But then with my clients, I generally tend to have 2, 3, 4 weeks. You have a phone call or a video call or something like that, just to check in and hold people accountable. And all you'll be doing there, again, so if it's not me, if someone else is going to do that for you, all you're going to do there is make sure that someone has got the ability to play back to you and say, okay, so you said you're going to do these things. Did you do them? Why didn't you do them? And just make sure that you understand if you didn't do something, it's not a bad thing. Although I have been known to tell my clients off and they're like, oh, I'm going to get told off this time. So it is possible that you might get, the situation where you think, actually, I didn't do those things and you really should have done them. But then that's okay. Making sure that you understand why you didn't do them so that the next quarter, you can actually put things in place to make sure that you do them, if that makes sense. So the accountability there is something that I'm quite passionate about in terms of making sure that people can get things done. It's great to say that you want to do them, but actually then achieving them is different. So if you find an accountability partner that works for you, that's a really good thing that's going to work well for your business too. So now I can move into the question side of things. So again, I'll wait for Jordan to jump on in a second. If you haven't already connected with me, again, my email on there, hello@Align the Arrows, my phone number. And again, if you've not connected with me on Facebook or on LinkedIn, both of the QR codes there take you to those to connect with me and have a conversation if you want to on there. And again, I mentioned briefly about there how people can work with me anyway. So how you can work with me is that you can plan. And again, this webinar, and there are other articles that I've got on YouTube and things that will help people to do this for themselves. You've already got a copy of this by email. And again, anybody that hasn't got this, then please let me know and we'll get one emailed out to you. So the idea is here that you can get that plan in place and do things yourself. Then there's the we plan. So we can do this together. We can do it over one day. And like I said, if it's just one business person or a couple of business people that work in a business together, it takes a day. A larger business, it will take maybe 2, depending on the size of the business. And again, we can do that together. You can have that plan and you can take it away. Just don't then put it in your drawer. And then the other part of this is, again, this is the most popular thing that I do, is that I help people to plan together. And then it's me helping the people, helping my clients to deliver. I hold them accountable, making sure that each time we have a conversation, making sure that if it wasn't done, why not? And then celebrating those things that did get done as well. And I generally tend to do that on a 12-monthly rolling cycle, go for 12 months and just make sure that happens. Each quarter, we then get together and make sure that we check in and make sure that those things are achieved. So that's the summarization of that bit 2. That should take us to the end of that one. So over to Jordan. Have we got any questions coming through, Jordan?
No questions today came through there.
Nothing at all. So I'm just going to hang on for a few moments. If anyone has got any questions, again, feel free to pop them in right now. And if not, then thank you again for attending. I really appreciate your time. And if you've liked this, then again, we'll be getting it shared out as well. So if you like it, then please feel free to share it to anybody else that might get value from this one. So again, it's a difficult time, but with a great plan, then hopefully you can all go and achieve wonders for your business. Again, no question.
Actually,
Well, sorry.
So how often do you look at your own plan?
Exactly as I said to you guys, and it's interesting. That's a great question because I was guilty of not doing it, and then I realised I felt like a bit of a fraud myself. First 3 months in business, I had my plan, and then on the 4th month, I sat and said, "Oh, things weren't going quite right." And I sat and said, "Hang on a minute!" I literally almost gave myself a kick at the bum, and said, "I've got a plan. When was the last time I checked on it?" So after 4 months of starting my own business, I realised that I should really be doing this myself. So I do exactly this. I have my partner, who's also who's kind of a client, if you like, but we both have our own plans and we both check in. We sit every 2 weeks. On a Thursday, we'll sit and make sure we've done the things we need to do. And in fact, 13 days from now, we'll be doing our annual planning day as well. So my annual plan is April. So I'll be doing my annual planning as well. So exactly as I'm prescribing to you is exactly as I do it myself, because again, if I can't eat my own cake, then I can't explain that and feel confident knowing that I'm doing the right thing for my clients.
Thank you. And just one more. So with the 3 years and 1 year section, how many goals would you say we should have?
So again, it would depend on the size of business that you've got and how many people will work there. And again, it would depend on the size of those targets. The 3 year one is a much more of you draw a picture. So you can put as much stuff in there to sort of build that picture as much as you like. Again, think about this from an artist's perspective. So you can draw as vivid a painting as you want, or you can draw stick men, whatever might work for you. The more vivid you can paint it, the better it is to then explain that to other people. So again, the more you put into 3-1, the better, but they shouldn't necessarily be very fixed targets that you put in place. The metrics will be, so your numbers might be, but the actual description of what that business is going to look like in 3 years doesn't need to be. That's going to be more about how it feels to work in that business and how it feels to operate. On the 1 year side of things, generally speaking, it will be around 7. So it's 7 for the for an individual is the max we really want to put on there. But again, it will depend on the size of those targets and the things that are going to be needed to achieve them. But generally speaking, 7 is the absolute max that you want to put in. And then on each quarter perspective, between 3 and 5 per individual, depending again on the size, how many people are working there and what you're trying to achieve. So you don't want to have a huge number on there, but the value is making sure that they're things that are actually going to drive your business forward. So that's the kind of things you want to be making sure they're doing.
Thank you. I think that's everything for now. Yeah.
Okay, so again, if anyone does think of anything after this, then again, feel free to get in touch and let me know what questions you might have. Otherwise, we'll call it a day there, and I'll wrap it up and let everyone drop off. Thank you very much.